Joe Schmidt enjoyed a lot of success in his time in Dublin and be hoping for a little bit more on Saturday. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Okay, so first off, I have to say apologies in advance for any coughing that you're going to hear throughout this video because I have a bit of a cold. I can't shake it at the minute. Hopefully over the next few days I can get rid of it. But for now, just got to deal with it. And it's hard for me to go even like a minute of talking without coughing. So it's definitely going to happen. I can already feel it coming on now. Actually, let me drink some water. Maybe that'll help a little bit, but I don't think too much. But yeah, so in this one, it's Ireland versus Australia. Joe Schmidt coming back to Dublin, where he was so successful with Leinster and with Ireland as well. Delivering trophies for both Leinster and Ireland. First win against the All Blacks as well, and subsequently other wins too. At the back of that, did so much for Irish rugby in terms of just changing the mentality and really helping Ireland to kind of reach another level. There's still obviously work to do. We still haven't reached the semi-final of a World Cup yet, let alone a final or won one. So there's still definitely more improvement to be done with Ireland. But Irish rugby still, I think, owes Joe Schmidt a big debt. But doesn't mean we should do him any favors with his Australian team either. So have to see how this game is going to go in this one. It looks like Joe Schmidt now is beginning to rejuvenate Australian rugby. It still feels like they're definitely still a work in progress for him, and I'm hoping that it doesn't mean that that Ireland isn't going to be the one of the big steps that they need, to beat England. If they could beat England, Wales and Ireland on the tour, they'd be very happy with that. But then we look at the coaching on the other side. Then you got Andy Farrell last game before he takes a sabbatical to go and do the lines, something I absolutely do not agree with at all, because I think it's going to have a detrimental effect for Ireland in terms of preparation for the Rugby World Cup. In terms of just him being away for the Six Nations is one thing, but then the fallout for players as well. Any players who felt like they had a chance to get in with the lines and they get snubbed and stuff like that, that's going to be a problem. And then as well, what's going to happen while he's away in terms of the team development? Is it just going to be a kind of a holding action there for Simon Easterby and no real development through the Six Nations? And then when he comes back in, is he going to be able to just pick up where he left off? There's a lot of kind of question marks about that, and it's really not, it's something I'm not happy about. And I hope it doesn't, ultimately affect Ireland's, run into the next World Cup either. But we're going to preview this game, so we'll do our usual thing. We'll go down through each of the teams first, then we come back and talk a little bit more in depth about the teams, and then about how I think the game is going to go as well. So we're going to start with the Irish team, starting for fullback. So we got Hugo Keenan coming back in. Sorry, I just pressed something that changed the thing there. Right wing then is Mac Hansen. Centres Robbie Henshaw and Bundia Key. Left wing James Lowe. The halfbacks then Sam Prendergast and James Gibson Park. Into the pack then, front row, Andrew Porter, Ronan Kelleher and Philly Beelum. Second row, Joe McCarthy and James Ryan. Back row is Tyg Byrne, Josh Van der Fleer and Caelan Doris, who's the captain. On the bench then, you got Gus McCarthy, Cian Healy, Tom O'Toole, Ian Henderson, Peter O'Mahony, Craig Casey, Jack Crowley and Gary Ringrose. Okay, now let's go down through the Australian team then, starting with the front row, because no two teams can list their players in the same order, apparently. So front row, James Slipper, Brandon Penga Amosa, Tanila Tupou, Nick Frost and Jeremy Williams are their second row. Back row then, Rob Valentini, Fraser McWright and Harry Wilson. Halfbacks, Jake Gordon and Noah Lolaseo. Left wing is Max Jorgensen. The Centres then, Len Ikitau and Joseph Aukuso Suili. Then Andrew Kellaway right wing and Tom Wright as fullback. On the bench then we got Billy Pollard, Angus Bell, Alan Alalatoa, Lucan, Salakai Loto, Langi Gleeson, Tate McDermott, Tane Edmund, and Harry Potter. Okay, so 2 really decent teams, and the thing with Australia as well is even when they were not great during the World Cup, like they've always had good players. It's more about, for them, it's been about producing a good team rather than necessarily, I don't think it's necessarily been the quality of the players. It's just about trying to get the right combinations, etc. They don't obviously have the depth that the likes of New Zealand or South Africa would have, and maybe now, kind of even Ireland might have a little bit more depth in them, but still there are always decent players running around in Australia. And even though they do have a lot of drain, like to going to play for other nations or going to play outside of Australia as well, heading off to England or England, France, or Japan and stuff like that as well. But still, always decent players there. But hopefully now they've got the right coach to bring them forward. But we're gonna talk more about that when we get onto the Australian team. So let's first of all look a bit closer at this Irish team. So Hugo Keenan, he's back in at fullback. It was Jamie Osborne who was there at fullback against Fiji, and Osborne is unavailable for this game. I think if Osborne had been unavailable, we might have seen him maybe in there in the midfield or on the bench. But then you're looking at the bench thinking, like, for me, I probably would have picked him over Gary Ringrose, but a lot of people maybe wouldn't. So that's certainly like a tough choice there, but definitely Hugo Keenan back as the starting fullback again. I still feel like Keenan, that break to go play the sevens didn't do him any favours and didn't do Leinster or Irish rugby any favours either. I still feel like he's not up at the level that he was before he did that. Right wing then we have Mac Hansen. He's done decently, he's done okay, but I still feel that it should have been the case that Nash was the man of possession and Hansen should have been the guy who was given the chance against the likes, maybe even Argentina and Fiji, to prove a point and maybe duel with him for that jersey. But Hansen just came straight back into the team. Did nothing about, I'm not complaining about the quality of his play or what he's done for Ireland in the past. I just, I've got a bit of a bugbear about a lack of competition in the Ireland team where, players, are just kind of given the jersey rather than, I feel like Nash could have been the starting right wing with Hansen trying to win that back. I think that would have been better for Ireland. Have 2 players, playing really well and dueling out for the jersey rather than it being a case of if Hansen is fit, then he starts. In the centres, we have lots of competition in there. We got, now it's Robbie Henshaw and Bundy Aki playing together, and I'm pretty sure they were the starters against against Fiji as well, right? And then you had McCluskey come on towards the end as well, just to show how much competition we have in there. Bundy Aki, for me, he didn't perform against New Zealand and he got dropped for the Argentina game, but for me, should not have been the only one that was dropped for that. There was plenty of players who should have been watching the Argentina game either from the bench or from the stands, that didn't, that kept their place. But Aki, in fairness to him, he responded well, and hopefully we get a decent play from these 2. I thought they combined really well against Fiji, and they obviously both were at Connacht at one time as well, so they have that understanding from playing together for years too, at the provincial level. And in Ireland it's a bit of chop and change a bit, in midfield, because normally you'll have Gary Ringrose in there with maybe one of those two. But yeah, I thought they went well against Fiji. Going to have to be really on it, because the Australian midfield, I think, is one of their strong points as well. Then left wing, you got James Lowe. We had Stockdale back against Fiji, and it's good to see him back in there again. Someone who I felt like, for the Six Nations, he didn't feel like he was there on merit, honestly. But he's been in really good form this year, so it was good to see him back in, at least, kind of earning his place in the team, rather than, again, just being one that Andy Farrell felt was someone who had performed in the past. But James Lowe in there, haven't seen the best of him, honestly. In the November series yet. So I think he is due a good performance, and maybe this is going to be the one for him. Maybe he's going to get a try, and maybe put in a try-saving tackle as well. We'll have to see. Then halfbacks, Sam Prendergast. We got that start again against Fiji. It came on for the last 20 minutes against Argentina as well. He very, very nearly got himself a red card against Fiji as well. And if he hadn't got that, he wouldn't have been available for this at all. So consider himself a little bit lucky. Although, the officials did say there was a low degree of danger in it. So, even you think about that and you think, okay, well, not a red card. But I still believe that if it had been like a year and a half ago, when World Rugby were really hot on this issue of contact with the head, I think it would have been a red card. Obviously back then we didn't have straight or 20-minute red cards, but it would have met the red card threshold then. But things have kind of changed since then. There's a lot more in terms of, like, I know there wasn't actual mitigation in this one. It was more that the level of danger didn't raise it to the red card threshold. But still can count himself a bit lucky. But he did well, I think, against Fiji. It's a step up, though, against Australia now for him to perform in this, and hopefully he goes well. And then he's in there against James Gibson Park, who's our best nine by a long way. I feel like, again, James Gibson Park, we haven't seen the best of him this season, either for Leinster or for Ireland. So another guy who's maybe due some decent form. You might see him going on a couple of snipes maybe, and maybe scoring a try or setting up a try. Then the front row, Andrew Porter apparently got to play almost every single minute of these November internationals, other than like the last few minutes of the games, and it just speaks to the dearth of of talent that we have in terms of loose head prop that he's got to play for so long, and we don't have anyone coming through that can dislodge Cian Healy from the bench either. And it's very worrying, honestly, because again, we're at this stage we should be looking at what is our prop our prop stock's going to be like come the next World Cup, right? Cian Healy's not going to be there. So at the moment, loose head is just Andrew Porter. And we have other players who come in for one or two caps, but we haven't really, for me, it feels like, or where we should be is that, let's say Porter's number one. Okay, well then who, like if we take Cian Healy out of the equation, who's number two, who's number three? And those guys need to get minutes. Those guys need to be starting games. They need to be coming on the last 20 minutes of games, so Porter is starting, etc. And we need to build up, a lot. We need to get a lot of caps into those guys, and every kind of international window that goes by that we're not doing that is just kicking the can down the road. So that's a bit of a worry for me. But at the moment, yeah, Porter is there starting. Then you got Ronan Kelleher at hooker. And we look at, no Sheehan available. So I think Keller was probably the in terms of the closest to Sheehan, I think if you're looking to play that style of game that Sheehan gives you, then Kelleher is the next cab off the rank. Finlay Bealham has done absolutely fantastic. Still no Tyke Furlong. He's been injured for the entire period, even though he was in the squad as well. But they couldn't get him ready for any of the games. So I think Bealham has done well. And there, at least we have a few guys at tight head coming through, which kind of make things a little bit better from on that side of the scrum. Then second row, Joe McCarthy and James Ryan. Joe McCarthy, real breakthrough the last couple of seasons. James Ryan felt like he had a point to prove after kind of the last Lions tour, and started kind of getting back to the level that he was previously. But I think both of them have kind of dipped this season so far for Ireland, and a little bit for Leinster as well. So I think those two are, they're kind of lucky that the squad that was picked didn't have the likes of, let's say, Ahern, Sheridan. You got a Dogbo as well. Some of the younger locks who are coming through, that could be potentially putting pressure on these guys. Not necessarily for starts or whatever, but if those guys can get themselves onto the bench or wherever and kind of displace the likes of Ian Henderson, and then after that, one of them gets injured and they get a run in the team, then suddenly things start to shift. But at the moment, that's not happening. Back row then, Tyg Byrne. For me, he should be starting in that second row, and I'll probably have Ryan on the bench instead. But yeah, you got Byrne there at 6. I still think he's falling between stools at the moment for me. He's not producing what we've seen before, that destructiveness at the breakdown, winning those penalties, etc. We don't see as much of that, and also in terms of carrying, he's not giving us as much as maybe other players would either. And then he is another line-out option, but our line-out has been pretty poor. The rest is the back row then. Josh van der Fleer, feel like he's one who did respond well to being given another chance after the New Zealand game, and Caelan Doris as well, captain. But we need to see more carrying from Doris, and we need Van der Fleer as well to be picking those lines that we've seen him doing for Leinster and for Ireland in the past as well, where he's getting in support of someone who's making a half break, getting through those gaps, and then making good yards. He's, in terms of, like, Doris carries hard, Van der Fleer I think carries smart. Of those two, but we need both of them carrying for us and carrying well. Onto the bench then, Gus McCarthy has done really well to take his chance now, and I'm glad he's there instead of Herring, because we have to be moving on to the newer, younger players at this stage, and hope he goes well when he comes on. But also something to consider with him is that when Sheehan comes back, how much game time is he going to see at Leinster? And do we need to start thinking about now maybe shifting him to another province so he gets more starts? For me, I think we should. There's a lot of players, I think, especially at Leinster, that should be at other provinces, in terms of just what's better for the national team. Then we got Cian Healy, who, when he comes on, he should come on, will become Ireland's standalone highest cap record earner at 134. At the moment, he's tied on 133 with Brian O'Driscoll. Brilliant for him and great servant for Ireland. But again, I wish it kind of sounds cruel saying that. I wish he wasn't going to be the record caps holder. But the reason I say that is because we don't have those loose heads available. He's been a brilliant servant, and he's a bit of a freak of nature, but still, the fact that he was able to get up to that number, at this stage of his career and this age, just tells you about the lack of depth that Ireland have at loose head. I'm really happy for him to be reaching that milestone, but at the same time, for the good of Irish rugby, I don't think it's actually a good thing that he's still there. Then we've got Tom O'Toole. I hope he's going to get on for some good minutes, and hopefully we can see. We haven't seen his carrying game that much when he's been getting opportunities lately. He had that time in the Six Nations. I think it was 2 seasons ago, right, when he came in the Six Nations, and he was absolute monster carrying. We want to see that Tom O'Toole again in this game. Then Ian Henderson, another one who I feel like we should have been looking at moving beyond at this stage. I know Ryan Berg got injured, and maybe Bird would be on the bench instead of him if he was still available. But then you look at there's like a log jam. It's not like there aren't young, up and coming second rows in Ireland that are looking for that opportunity. Just a good few of them. They might be young, but still look at the likes of Prendergast or Crowley. If they're good enough, they're old enough, as they say. So I would have had one of them in there instead of him. I feel like he's at that stage now where his contributions off the bench aren't always positive. He comes on, he's knocking on the ball, he's giving away penalties, etc. It's not. I don't think it's his fault. I don't think he's trying to do those things. I just think he's a player who had huge potential for Ireland, had terrible injury profile, and never, for me, quite fulfilled his potential. But he's been a great servant for Ireland. But I think he's still trying to play at the level that he was at previously, and I'm not sure that he's able to sustain it even when he's coming on just for 20 minutes at the end. We've got Peter O'Mahony, who I'm not sure he's still back up to fitness. Obviously, he came into the Irish camp rehabbing, and we have to see how he goes. Then Craig Casey at 9. I'm glad he's there instead of Conor Murray, simply because, again, we're looking to the future. We should be looking to the future, and it's good to see him on there. Jack Crowley the same. I think that he is our starting 10. I think Prendergast is getting an opportunity to start in this one, but I still feel like Crowley is Ireland's number one when it comes to the 10 jersey. He's been in poor form though, so I want him to come on with those last maybe 10 minutes or so, or 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, and do well just to re-establish himself there too. And then Gary Ringrose, fantastic player, good one to have on the bench, because normally you look at the Ireland bench, you think there aren't really many game changers on the Ireland bench. We very often pick a very conservative bench. So with Crowley and Ringrose on there, I'm liking the looking at, and with Casey as well in the backs. I think it's looking good. In the forwards, Gus McCarthy and Tom O'Toole aside, it's kind of looking a bit backwards. But there still are players there who can turn the clock back and absolutely produce performances. So that's our Ireland team. Now let's have a close look at the Australian team. So first up, we're talking about Cian Healy, going to be the record cap holder with 134 caps. So while James Slipper has this will be his 140th cap for the Wallabies. So another great servant, and it kind of speaks as well to the fact, I think, it's not just confined to Ireland. I think a lot of nations outside of South Africa and maybe one or two other nations, there's been kind of almost a missing generation of loose heads or props in general as well in the game. We're seeing a lot of these guys now who are just there, and it's not their fault that they're at a level where they're keeping other guys out of the team. If it was me and the coach thinks I'm good enough, of course I'm going to want to play. I'm not going to say, I'm just going to give another young guy a chance. I'm just going to, I'm going to be selfish. I want the cap. So I don't hold anything against the players themselves. And Slipper has been fantastic for Australia. I think looking at this front row as well, you got Slipper and Tupou as the props, and then you got Paenga Amosa, who I don't know all that much about, but still it's a strong front row. And I think, Ireland's scrum is middling, like, average, middling, and sometimes poor. I don't think we have a brilliant scrum. We certainly don't have a destructive scrum, especially not since, basically, media and coaches have convinced referees that Andrew Porter is always illegal in the scrum. It's taken away a big weapon for Ireland. And, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Wallabies are on top in the scrum. Then you got Frost. He was galloping in. It was against Wales, right? He galloped in for that try. And then you got Williams beside him there as well. So it's going to be interesting battling in the second row too. Again, the Irish second row is not on the best of form. These, especially Frost, have looked decent through November. Then the back row, then Rob Valentini, a guy I have a lot of time for. I think he's a really top class player. Then Fraser McWright as well. Somebody who's been in and around the Wallabies squad, and it's one of those where there's been a lot of churn in the back row, and he's kind of been in the picture, out of the picture, and now he's back in there, and I think he's in there, on merit as well. Harry Wilson is the captain there too, so going to be competitive in that back row. At halfback, then you got Jake Gordon at 9. A guy who, he loves playing fast, and Ireland got to be kind of on it with him as well. He's a quick thinker, and he's going to be going for those quick taps, etc. And Ireland have to be switched on all the time, or they're going to get cut out. Noah Lolesio, a guy who was kind of, he was seen as a potential for 10 for a while, and then kind of he got put to the back of the queue, and now he with Joe Schmidt there now, he's in there at 10 and doing well. So nice to see him in there too, and it's kind of a nice kind of comparison between the halfbacks as well, between the two teams. You've got Gibson Park, really established for Ireland, been around a long time, next to kind of a younger guy. And then for the Wallabies, because of the kind of changes that they've had in the halfbacks, they're beginning to get a settled 9-10 combination. So neither combination in terms of the their national teams all that settled compared to other teams who've had their combinations for a long time. But even if you look at Gibson Park and Prendergast for Leinster, I think Prendergast has only played 8 games for Leinster or something like that, and not many of them starting either at 10. Then you got Max Jorgensen, who scored that winning try. He scored a winning try against England, right? So very dangerous out there on the wing, good finisher. Then the midfield, Ikitau and Sualihi, two fantastic players, both good ball players, both good carriers, both got that offloading game as well, and Ireland are going to have to keep them quiet, but they're also going to have to do the same to the Irish midfield as well. Andrew Callaway, somebody who's been there for a long time, I think has delivered well for the Wallabies, and kind of similar to Tom Wright as well. I'm pretty sure Tom Wright at some stage was given a go at 10 as well. I'm pretty sure that's right too. But yeah, decent experience there for them, compared to, you got the likes of Jorgensen and Sualihi, not as established in terms of, like, if you look at the likes of Ikitau or Callaway or Wright, who've been there for much longer. Then onto the bench, then you got Billy Pollard, looking to come on and have an impact. Then you got lots of experience in Angus Bell and Alan Alatoa coming on there as well. So you look at them compared to the Irish replacements, and again, it's going to be a battle there in the front row. Salakai Loto, covering the second row, and he's going to come on around the same time as Henderson comes on. So both of them will be looking for positive impact. But again, kind of like Henderson, I have a feeling one of them is going to have a negative impact for the team, unfortunately. Then you got Gleeson covering the back row there. Take McDermott at 9. Another guy who likes to go quick with the ball as well. So Ireland, there's going to be no respite when he comes on. Then Tane Edmund, scheduled for basically his test debut when he comes on. So best luck to him, but not too much luck as an Ireland fan. And then Harry Potter, if you watch the Premiership, you know this guy, you know how talented he is. So he's going to be like a game breaker coming on for Australia as well. So two really strong teams going at it. And, my view of this game has changed as the situation has evolved over November. Like looking at how we had like Ireland struggling against New Zealand, being very poor, then just about struggled to win against Argentina. At the same time, you had Australia beating England, beating Wales, and then I was thinking, okay, well, Australia are going to be a real threat to Ireland. I still think they are going to be a threat to Ireland, but then Ireland played Fiji, and suddenly the hands were there. The passes were sticking. Yes, we had still plenty of errors. Some silly forward passes, etc. But it looked more fluid, and it looked like there were more options as well for the ball carrier, which is what the Ireland attacking system is all about. It's having all, keeping the defence guessing, because there's so many potential ball carriers running. Excuse me. So Ireland looking better against Fiji, and then Australia, not looking as impressive against a very good Scotland team, has to be said. But you can have this with a team who are developing, where they have a dip for a game and then they come back. It's not necessarily a case of, oh, well, they lost against Scotland, and on paper Ireland are a better team than Scotland, so therefore Ireland have already won. Rugby doesn't work that way. So looking at it now and thinking about it, okay, well, two decent teams. Ireland certainly looking better than they had done in the opening two games. Australia probably looked better at the start of their November compared to how they are now, but I feel like it's still going to be a fairly close game, especially if you're Australian, if you're in the Australian team, you're going to be hunting down the likes of Sam Prendergast and putting big pressure on him and really testing out his resolve there as well. And then also for me as well, Hugo Keenan would be another guy that I target. I know he's really good in the air, etc., but he has, compared to the way he was before, he's not as impeccable in the air. He's dropped a lot of balls, in comparison to the way he was before. That's another guy for me I'd be targeting. I'd be getting the likes of Sualihi, put him up in the air against him, because I think like Hugo Keenan of maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, would have been in charge, I think, at the back in terms of high balls. But now I don't think so. I don't think he's at that level anymore. And we saw him getting exposed in the sevens as well, where they were targeting him for the kicks. So we might see that actually happening in this game. Then get at him, get at Prendergast as well. Put pressure on Porter, because that Ireland really don't want to bring on. They want to bring on Healy at some stage. Don't want to bring him on that early. So I think that's an area to be exploited as well. Porter will feel like he's going to have to play 70 minutes of the game. And, I think that's an area where you can definitely target and maybe get some penalties in the scrum. From that, I think the Ireland's line-out is ripe as well for exploitation. Kelleher, in terms of technical ability throwing in, Definitely not the best hooker available there. Herring's certainly better. I think McCarthy is better too at that. So Ireland's lineup might actually, improve when he comes on. But that's certainly early doors. If I was Australia, that's another area I'd target. Also keep Tyburn quiet. Do what New Zealand have done and kind of shown the blueprint to take hold of him, and that's basically just have somebody man mark him and just keep him out of the rucks, or make him do the tackling, or just have a guy man mark him so that he never gets a chance to get over that ball and be as effective. Because the problem that Ireland have at the moment is that there aren't many other threats at the breakdown for winning turnovers. Porter used to be one. He's not up there really anymore. We've seen Bundy Aki do it at times. We've seen some of the backs in isolated instances, but there isn't really another big poacher in the Ireland team. So if you can handle Byrne, then you can kind of secure your ball a little bit more. And then because you've got one guy, looking after him, you don't have to commit maybe an extra 2 players to a ruck to get fast ball every time. So that's something that I definitely do. And then looking at the bench as well, it's going to be close, I think, between the two teams when the benches come on. So, and another thing to think about is this Ireland team are not a team that finishes brilliantly. Like they don't feel like they're. And you can look back at all the results that Ireland have had in terms of wins and losses, and look at the last 20 minutes of the game. Very rarely have Ireland been, going into the last quarter, been behind and come back to get the win. Sometimes they'll be ahead going into the last quarter, fall behind, and then able to go again to get themselves back ahead. But generally, if it's 20 minutes to go and Ireland are like a score or two behind, they're probably going to lose the game. So the first 60 minutes, I think, is going to be key for Australia in terms of trying to just get themselves either stay in touch or get themselves, a bit of a lead over Ireland. And if they do that, they've got a brilliant chance, I think, of winning the game. For Ireland, they need to be, they need to have a good start. They can't be conceding a try in the first kind of 2 or 3 minutes, just by not being switched on at the start. They need to be the ones to get the fast start. But they need to carry that through. They can't do what they did against Argentina, where they score wherever it was 20 odd points within 30 minutes and then don't score anything for the rest of the game. They need to be able to get that fast start, but also build on it. And in the second half for Ireland, between minutes 40 and 60 could be the key for Ireland in terms of winning the game, in terms of just keeping that scoreboard ticking over, whether it's penalties or going for drop goals or getting tries. Ireland need to be scoring in that period, and if they can do that, I think Ireland are going to take the win. In terms of my prediction for the game, I have to go for my own team. I think Australia, I think by the time the lines come around, this Australian team are going to be so much better. We're seeing kind of the green shoots for them now. But I think at the moment, Ireland should be the better of the two teams. Performance-wise over November, average performance, to say Australia probably performed better than Ireland. But I think, I'm hoping actually that this is going to be Ireland's best performance, and I'm going to go for an Ireland win. But let me know what you think down in the comments.